The name Baal is attached to a god of distinct character, who is designated the universal god of fertility, and in that capacity, his title was Prince, Lord of the Earth. Baal was also called the Lord of Rain and Dew, the two forms of moisture that were indispensable for fertile soil in Canaan. He was considered one of the most important gods in the pantheon. In Ugaritic and Hebrew, Baal's epithet as the storm god was he who rides on the clouds. The myths also tell of Baal's struggle to obtain a palace comparable in grandeur to those of other gods. We learn the temple of Baal was later destroyed centuries ago, but shockingly, Baal is being manifest today, hiding in plain sight, and I'm afraid the return of Baal is right before us. In this video, we will look at the recent occurrences in our world that point to the return of Baal. But before we begin, kindly support my channel by clicking the subscribe button on your screen. In 2015, ISIS militants destroyed many ancient sites in Iraq and Syria as part of their campaign against archaeology. The destruction was part of a propaganda campaign that included videos of militants rampaging through Iraq's Mosul Museum with pickaxes and sledgehammers, and the dynamiting of centuries-old Christian and Muslim shrines and modern graves belonging to other sects, citing idol worship to justify their actions. Syria, by the way, was a region known as the cradle of civilization in the Middle East. It is a Muslim territory, so you'd naturally not expect it to have anything to do type of darkness they are about to witness. I mean, for the most part, Baal worship gained prominence in Israel, a Christian-centered community, where it most likely originated from. But if you thought it ended when Elijah called down the flames, you're in for a shocking revelation. I don't want to go into details to dig up the unfortunate aftermath of the Civil War, which has left more than 230,000 dead and millions more homeless in the wake of its destruction. But that was when the Temple of Baal, Bel, or Baal-Shemin, one of the supposedly best preserved ruins at the Syrian site of Palmyra, was destroyed. I will dig deeper into the significance of this temple later. Palmyra is an ancient city located in south-central Syria, approximately 130 miles or 210 kilometers northeast of Damascus. The name Palmyra, which means city of palm trees, was given to the city by its Roman rulers in the 1st century CE. The pre-Semitic name of the site, Tadmur, Tadmor, or Tudmur, is still in use today. The very thought about the nefarious rituals associated with the Temple of Baal-Shemin will make you lose every sense of rightness in you. We're talking about thousands of souls to be sacrificed to this idol. What is even more idolatrous than the Temple of Baal-Shemin itself is the archway that led to it, which you'd have to go through to gain entrance to the temple. The archway was left initially untouched by ISIS in the Slough of Destruction, but they came back later to destroy it. This archway is known as the Arch of Triumph in Palmyra. As I progress, you will see where this is going and why you should be more than curious about the so-called global events, conferences, and seminars happening around us. As with any other cultural or social artifact, the Arch of Triumph was made an iconic landmark and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was built by the Romans in the 2nd century and was a symbol of the ancient city of Palmyra. Whatever you believe in, trust me when I say the archway is going to lead to a string of events you wouldn't want the world to wake up to. Somewhat ironically, ISIS militants destroyed this 800-year-old Arch of Triumph as part of their campaign to erase cultural treasures and historical sites. The arch was blown up, and the destruction of this ancient structure was widely condemned as a loss to humanity's cultural heritage. But dear viewers, be reminded that this arch represented something much more than a cultural heritage. Now here is the shocking part you don't know about. Not long after the ISIS blow-up, a replica of the Arch of Triumph was created in New York City in 2016. The mayor of New York later explained this replica was a reminder of the original arch and the importance of preserving our shared history. I don't know if he knew this or not, but this is Satan trying to subtly manifest in broad daylight, because the arch or its representation is symbolic of Baal worship. Sadly, all the people who flocked onto that square that day, ignorant or not, were Baal worshippers. I called them ignorant because the arch was recreated by a team of archaeologists at Oxford University's Institute for Digital Archaeology, IDA, using 3D printing technology and Egyptian marble. It's very likely these people didn't have complete information about the symbolism of their recreation. The arch is 2/3 the scale of the original and was built based on photographs of the original arch. It is tempting to think this as just a piece of architecture after all. That's what the people behind wants the world to think. But it'll be pure evil, coming right under your nose. The Temple of Baal, for which this arch was initially created, was later converted into a Christian church, and finally, a mosque. When the arch was remade, it was also put on display in Trafalgar Square in London in April 2016, before being moved to Dubai. And erroneously, some people would think it amazing, as it was not roped off, allowing them to walk under it and touch it, not realizing what they've been initiated to. I am probably being too pessimistic or reading too much into this, but you also need to read between the lines. From New York and London, they moved to Dubai in the UAE. Now the question is, why Dubai? Why take it to the next center of world economic power, crisscrossing the whole of Africa and the Middle East? Without beating about the bush, this is representative of something satanic. It's the portal to the temple of Baal. Now, as I promised earlier, let's take a look at the symbolism of this temple. The Arch of Triumph that's already been mounted in New York, London, and Dubai is alarmingly not what you think it is. It is a replica of the entrance to the temple of Baal, which was a prostyle, tetrastyle temple of the Corinthian order with a deep porch. The temple was consecrated to the Mesopotamian god Bel, worshipped at Palmyra in a triad with the lunar god Aglabal and the sun god Yarhibal, and formed the center of religious life in Palmyra. The temple was built on a tell with stratification indicating human occupation that goes back to the 3rd millennium BCE. The most striking parts of the temple of Baal were its deep porch and the sanctuary, which was a mimicry of the Holy of Holies. If you can recall the picture God showed to Moses in Exodus 25 about the temple, the Holy of Holies was separated from the rest of the temple by a large veil and was the most sacred part of the temple. It was where the Ark of the Covenant was kept in the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. You can see that everything God makes, Satan tries to make a parody of it. Yes, that's what he does. Now what do I mean by that? Listen, the sanctuary and the temple of Baal was similarly separated from the rest of the temple by a screen, and was the most sacred part of the temple. It was where the statue of Baal was kept. To show how hideous the plan has been, when this replica was made and being moved about, there were many articles published by Time magazine and other media houses about it in 2016, though with some covert headlines, one of which read, "Arch to Temple of Baal arrives in New York City." This, of course, sparked a whole lot of reactions from evangelicals, even among those who didn't really profess Christianity, but were at least sane enough to realize something wasn't right. However, what many couldn't understand was that the arrival of the arch in London coincided with the Beltane Festival, a pagan festival for worshipping Baal. While in London, most of us thought it was a harmless UNESCO World Heritage Week in April 2016, but when they moved it to Dubai under the guise of the World Government Summit, I knew this was rapidly gaining ground among major world power players. You must have thought the World Government Summit, which is an annual event that brings together world leaders, international organizations, and experts from various fields to discuss the future of governance, was all about global warming and economic stability. Well, it was not just about that. It's about the world powers gradually coming into alignment to form a unilateral world government. There you had power gluts like Barack Obama, Elon Musk, and the rest of them giving talks, and it would surprise you that though the replica of the arch was not part of the official program of the summit, it was erected in the same location as the summit. Of course, this was hidden from the rest of the world, because the arch was never mentioned in any of the official documents or speeches of the summit. Just when we thought that was it, the subsequent year saw the arch being moved to another equally world-dominating location, Italy. This happened in March 2017, when the Palmyra Arch of Triumph replica was erected for the G7 Culture Summit in Florence, Italy. The summit brought together ministers of culture from Germany, France, the US, Japan, Canada, the UK, and Italy to discuss the future of governance. Can you see the dominance slowly creeping in? Of Satan, gradually taking his hold on the world in the public glare, and we, obviously too busy to notice it, of the very near evil hiding in plain sight. The replica of the Palmyra Arch of Triumph has been erected in various cities around the world. They'll tell you it's a symbol of resistance to ISIS's rampant acts of cultural destruction in Iraq and Syria, but by now, I believe you know better. The Bible speaks of these things happening in the last days, where people will turn away from faith, listen to what is said about spirits, and follow the teachings about demons. It speaks of times of much trouble in the last days, where the love of many will wax cold, and people will turn back to idolatry, worshipping money, power, and statues of Satan. The replica of the Arch of Baal is a cause for concern for Christians, or anyone who professes Christ. It is a sign that we might soon have to make a life-threatening choice in a most violent battle of supremacy between good and evil. Please reach down to the comments section and let me know what you think about the Arch of Triumph and what it represents. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications if you haven't done so already. See you on the other side.